Is there anything you'd like to report before we move to closed session?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. If the city council so moves, then the city council will adjourn into closed session to discuss those items agendized for closed session discussion. Specifically, item number 1, conference with labor negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. Designated representatives, city manager, city attorney, employee organization, executive management. Item number 2, conference with real property negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8. Agency negotiators, city manager. Item number 3, conference with labor negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. Agency designated representative, city manager, employee organization, HPOA. And finally, item number 4, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9A. Woodall versus City of Hollister et al., San Benito County Superior Court Case Number CU 2000155. And that's all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. With that, do we have any speaker cards?
I have no speaker cards, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Is there a motion to move to closed session?
I make a
So
motion.
moved.
I'm sorry, who made the motion?
Councilmember Perez made the motion.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We will now move to closed session. we just waiting on the city manager now?
Yes, Mr. Mayor?
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, we are ready to go.
We're all back. Thank you. This time, we're going to resume the meeting of December 21st, 2020. Councilmember Perez, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you very much, Councilmember Perez. Roll call, please.
Mayor Velasquez,
Here.
Councilmember Perez,
Here?
Councilmember Resendez,
Present.
Vice Mayor Spencer,
Present.
Councilmember Burns,
Here.
City Manager Miller,
Here.
City Attorney Epperson,
Here.
Interim Police Chief Reynoso.
Here.
The amended agenda for the City of Hollister City Council regular meeting of December 21st, 2020 was posted on the bulletin board on December 18th, 2020 at 3:05 p.m. per Government Code Section 54954.2.
Thank you very much. City Attorney, will you please report out from closed session?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before the city council adjourned into closed session, I read into the record those items agendized for closed session discussion. The city council did go into closed session and discuss those items. Direction was given to staff and negotiators, and the city council adjourned from closed session at 6:43 p.m. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. We're going to move to the consent agenda. Are there any items council would like to pull from the consent agenda? Do we have any speaker cards?
Yes, the member of the public pulled consent item number 7.
Is that it?
Yes.
Is there a motion?
I move that we adopt the consent agenda as shown by staff other than item 7.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Motion carries. We'll move to item A7.
Thank you, Mayor. I have Sydney from HR to present this item.
All right, good evening, Mayor and council members. So before you and attached was the City of Hollister COVID-19 Prevention Program. On November 19th of this year, the Occupational Safety and Health Standards Board did adopt an emergency temporary regulation requiring that all employers adopt and implement a COVID-19 prevention program. Per the California Code of Regulations, Title 8, Section 3205. So also the regulation took effect November 30th. As of then, effective that date, Cal OSHA is able to enforce those regulations and implement violations and fines if we're not in compliance. So the prevention program in front of you is compliant with the stated regulations. It was drafted by our attorneys from Liebert Cassidy Whitmore with changes made by staff as needed to meet our needs. Are there any questions?
Any questions from council? Thank you very much. Is there a motion?
We have speakers, Mr. Mayor?
We do have speakers?
Yes.
Jamila, did you want to speak on this one?
Yes, good evening, council members. My name is Jamila Saka, and I am a resident of the city of Hollister, and I'm actually an employee with the city of Hollister. I do appreciate staff's time reviewing and creating our COVID prevention plan. At this time, I would appreciate the idea or potential amendment to the section where it discusses the minimum safety requirement. In this, it indicates that a staff member who may be showing signs or symptoms of COVID is just expected to maintain their isolation for a minimum of 10 days. It does not require that a employee present a negative test to indicate that they are COVID-free and that they do not have potential options or just the potential of potentially infecting other staff members. It just indicates that if they have low degrees of symptoms, within that 10 days, they can return to work. So as an employee of the city of Hollister, I would really appreciate if we reviewed this and thought, if you were an employee of the city of Hollister, would you want to come back to work if a potential coworker of yours may still be infected and is not presenting a negative test? I understand that this is a federal standard, that you do not have to present a negative test to, but I would really appreciate that as a city employee to be able to have that safeguard. Even if someone is showing lessened symptoms, I would just really appreciate that amendment or that thought behind having employees present a negative test to indicate that they are COVID-free, even though they may have shown lessened degrees of symptoms. That was really my only thought behind this COVID prevention plan. Overall, I do appreciate the thought behind it and following the state and federal guidelines. But again, I would really appreciate some thought behind how employees return to work who may or may not be asymptomatic or symptomatic during this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers?
Oh, I would like to address Jamal's comment, if that is okay.
Oh, we have another.
Go
I
ahead.
have one more speaker. Elias Salinas?
Thank you, City Council and Mayor Velasquez. I completely agree with Jamila, and I'm sorry if I'm blowing your name because I know my name's difficult. But the fact that people are asymptomatic and are working along other people, we know that that is how it's transmitted. I think it is in the best interest of your city employees that they be tested. It takes more than 10 days to be symptomatic. And then obviously there's asymptomatic where you don't know what the symptoms are and you can still be infected. I completely agree 100% I believe it's the duty of the city to make sure that their employees are safe. Therefore, the test should be required and it should be on the city to pay for the tests. The numbers are increasing. I know all of you out there know that the numbers are increasing. They're not going any lower. There's more people out there that have become emboldened about what happened on Thursday. There have been staff members that have been threatened, and I don't know if I should be saying this now because it's on this item, but it is associated with the COVID. We need to do whatever you need to do as city council members to do whatever it is that you can possibly to keep all your employees safe. The last thing we need, and we're going to be going over the budget, and the budget has gone over because of what's been going on. There's been extra work having to be done by the first responders, by the fire department, by city staff because of this. So again, it is in the best interest of the city council to look out for your city employees and keep them safe as possible. I completely agree that you should be tested because asymptomatic, and I'm repeating myself, but I have one more minute to go. I don't know how else to burn it into your brains, that it is in the best interest of the city. There was going to be part of the Congress passing this new CARES program, or whatever it's called now, that they wanted to make sure, one of the things was that they wanted to make sure that the corporations that knew that there was a virus and there were people infected, knew and still allowed their employees to work. That has been taken off this new budget, so that corporations who know and cities who know that they have employees that are affected can infect other people, and it just goes on. That small circle keeps growing and growing by the contacts that are made. So please, let's show your staff that you care for them and get this passed. Thank you.
We have
Any
no
other
more speakers, Mr. Mayor.
Speakers?
All right, thank you. I'm just going to address some of the concerns that were brought up. So we, the City of Hollister, do follow very strict guidelines, and we work very closely with our county's public health department, who follows state regulations, and our guidelines are based off of the CDC guidelines. For individuals who, to address Jamila's concerns, for individuals who are symptomatic, we do ask that they get tested. They are contagious 2 days prior to showing symptoms. So in the cases where they have been working, within those 48 hours prior to when their symptoms began, we do request a test to make sure that our staff are safe and well taken care of, as well as take note of if anyone has been and within 6 feet for a cumulative of 15 or more minutes within a 24-hour period of an individual, with, of course, maintaining the utmost confidentiality. And in those cases, based on those results, we move on from there. So if it's a positive test result, anyone who's been exposed, we do notify. However, the health department is also reaching out to them as well. But we do think it's our duty to reach out to our staff to let them know and notify them that if they have been exposed while at work. Also, for asymptomatic cases, if you're exposed, you have to go into a 2-week quarantine. You can test at day 5 or later based on exposure date. So based on the last date of exposure, we do require staff to quarantine. They are able to work from home if they have the equipment to do so. But if out, we do cover, that is emergency paid sick leave under the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. So we do cover that time. Again, we function on what's the safest for our staff. If there's ever a case scenario where the county says yes and an individual has met their isolation or quarantine period, they have finished that, but the individual is still symptomatic and it's up to the employer's discretion, per prior practice, what we have been doing since March, we've been keeping staff home. If they still have a cough, if they're still running fevers, we're keeping them home to make sure that once they return to work, there's no possibility of spreading what they have. So we do function in the safest way possible for staff. We have implemented a number of safety equipment in place, face coverings, we have dividers in the offices, but in terms of testing, we follow everything by the book, and if there is anything up at the employer's discretion, we do lean on the side of caution, incredible caution, because we want it to be the safest workplace as possible.
Thank you. Thank you for the information. Any questions or comments from council?
Mayor, this is Tim Burns. I do have a question, please. So, I'm curious, what have your bargaining units' responses been to what the city's program is?
For this program or in general?
Well, actually both, please.
Okay, so this is a new program that was drafted by our attorneys per the requirement of Title 8, Section 3205 for the California Code of Regulations. They do require that employers have this program, which is why we're bringing it for you here. In terms of the other requirements, the unions with questions, if they have any, they've brought them up to us and they've been addressed. My colleague, our HR analyst, has met with the unions. We go over things, even if there's questions after the fact, after the meetings, we're constantly going over. Just now I got a call regarding COVID questions, and after hours, anytime on weekends, we're there to answer these questions for the union, for our staff, for the community, because we do understand that, there could be some concern, gray areas, and we want to make sure everyone has the correct information and knowledge, which is why we want to implement the program, so that way we have these guidelines for staff to go based off of as well. And as you can see from the comments were brought here today, they want what's safest for them. So if we can have minimum requirements and then, that meet the requirements per the state, we can also implement additional, requirements as well as an agency, as long as we meet these minimum requirements per state law.
Thank you. So then, what I've heard you say in closing is, if we chose to move forward to require the negative test before the employee returned, we have the ability to do so. It's simply, do we have an interest or do we see a value to it? Am I hearing that correctly?
In terms of testing, we do, depending on the case, we do ask for testing. There have been cases where an employee might not get their test results back. This happened more in the beginning. If a case like that happens, we do require them to complete the isolation or quarantine periods per the county's guidelines. But again, based on this case-by-case basis, if they're out for symptomatic reasons, we, per prior practice, keep them out until they're symptom-free.
Yeah, Councilmember Burns, one of the issues too was early on it used to be you could not come back until you had 2 negative tests. The problem was, as tests became scarce, that was using up a lot of test kits to get those 2 negative tests. So same thing with the results. I'm sure you've heard, or in this area, it can take up to 7 days before we get the results back. I mean, we have a few people that have taken more than 7 days. So we've sent them out to get their initial test, found out that they were positive, and now waiting for a second test. It could be, now we're into 21 days before we even get an employee back, where the CDC or the California Department of Health does not require that.
Sorry, just one more thing. So yes, Brett is correct. That was what we followed in the beginning of the pandemic. As of currently, they actually do not require a negative test to return if you've tested positive. This is because you can actually test positive up to 3 months if you have tested positive for COVID. So you could have COVID, recover, and then 3 months later, if the protein is still getting picked up by the test, you could still be testing positive. So based on that, CDC doesn't recommend negative tests or testing again within 3 months of a positive COVID test. Again, we follow every guideline that's given to us by our health department from the county.
Thank you. I appreciate your answers.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions? I appreciate all of your information. I've been dealing with this for quite a while, listening to the different information out there. And you're right, now it's not recommended to take that second test because, as you pointed out, some people can still test positive 3 months later, but they're not contagious. So there's a lot of information out there right now about how this is working. Some of the asymptomatic, they'll be sick, they'll test and retest again a week later, and they're negative. So it's just odd the way these things work. But
actually, I had a question still. I'm sorry.
Hang on.
Okay.
They have put together these different guidelines that really do meet a lot of these different questions and areas. And I think the city manager really did say it best. Sometimes you can go back in, wait for another test, and it could be 21 plus days later. It comes down to a person, if they're still feeling the symptoms or not, needs to stay home. It doesn't start from when you took your test. It starts from when you're not feeling the symptoms anymore. That's the key to this. And it's a tricky thing to make sure people understand it, but that's how we can get through this. Once they're clear and they're feeling well, after so many days, they're probably not a danger or contagious to others. Now, I heard somebody else speaking?
That was me, Perez, Councilman Perez.
Councilman Perez?
So there's so much confusion with all the information that's going out and stuff. So what I'm hearing tonight is that CDC doesn't require a negative test after you're asymptomatic to come back because it could be positive.
They are not requiring a negative test to come back if you have tested positive. So if you are Asymptomatic but have tested positive for COVID, they do not require a negative test to return to work because someone would have to wait over 3 months to get tested again per their guidelines. They say to not test again for 3 months.
So forgive me if it's just, but if you keep testing positive, doesn't that mean you're positive?
Not necessarily. There is a 10-day period where you actively have the COVID-19 virus. So if you, and you're contagious, so if you test positive, they require a 10-day isolation after that date of, based on the date of testing. So even if you were symptomatic before that testing date, per health department, as they've directed, the 10-day isolation is based off your testing date with a positive test.
So what I'm hearing is, if you test positive and you're asymptomatic, you only have it for 10 days.
You only have to isolate for 10 days. That is correct. Per what the county follows, per state and CDC guidelines. The CDC had recently also released reduced quarantine periods. We have been following per the criteria for essential staff, which is slightly different. But our health department did notify me last week that the state had not yet adopted those regulations of the reduced quarantine periods per the CDC guidelines. So in very few cases, you would see that. And in this case, they decided not to do that because it's safer for us to follow what we currently have in place until the state decides that they would like to adopt those regulations.
So I agree, and I'm totally for following the CDC state requirements. I'm just trying to address the concerns of your fellow
Yes.
employees.
Yes.
You know, of wanting an extra test, and it's not. I'm just kind of confused, and I don't know. Maybe it's because I didn't eat my dinner, but
It's very confusing.
it just sounds kind of funny coming back to work. It's like, you know, how can we? Is there any way we can assure your fellow employees, our fellow citizens, that when they come to work, they're going to be safer?
Yeah, Councilmember Perez, we do everything we can to be on the cautious side. If we make sure that people are checking their temperatures, if they have any symptoms, we have them stay home. You know, and in fact, some people have had symptoms, probably common flu, and they're not coming back until we have their test results. So we do everything we can to be on the cautious side.
Okay.
Yeah, any symptom at all. If we even think that someone could have potentially been exposed, say there's like a secondhand exposure case and we think someone, if they get a headache, we're sending them home. Because per the CDC symptoms of COVID-19, we follow that strictly, and if they are symptomatic whatsoever, especially in those sensitive cases, we do everything we can to keep our staff safe while still being able to function as an agency.
Thank you.
And just as a reminder of what we have here today for the prevention program, it's, again, per the California Code of Regulations, it's to meet those standards and requirements per Cal OSHA, and it includes, you know, those safety requirements that employers have to have in place, which again, we are meeting them, but we are required by this temporary emergency regulation that they had passed to have a COVID-19 prevention program.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments from council? Is there a motion?
This is Tim
I'll make
Burns,
the
and I will,
motion that we adopt resolution number 2020-22 and 26, sorry.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so
Okay.
much. Stay safe, everyone.
We'll move now to item C, public input. This is time for anyone in the audience to speak on any item not on the agenda and within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council. Speaker cards are available in the lobby and are to be completed and given to the city clerk before speaking. When the city clerk calls your name, please come to the podium, state your name and city for the record, and speak to the city council. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes with a maximum of 30 minutes per subject. Please note that state law prohibits the city council from discussing or taking action on any item not on the agenda. Do we have any speaker cards tonight?
Yes, we did receive a written public comment from Joseph Thompson, and the written comment will be on file in the city clerk's office. Jason Noble, you're next. We'll unmute you.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Terrific. Good evening, Mayor, council members, and Merry Christmas. I'm Jason Noble, and I'm representing the seller and buyer of 4 acres on Fallon Road at Technology Way in Hollister. The buyer is a mini storage owner and developer. There's currently an ordinance in place preventing construction of mini storages, RV, and boat storage facilities within 500 feet of Highway 25 and San Felipe roads. My client's intention is to construct a mini storage facility only at the site. Because this parcel has frontage on Fallon Road and additional compensating factors screening its view from San Felipe Road, I'm making this request that the council consider suspending the ordinance to process an application for this project. Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you, sir.
Marty Miller.
Mr. Miller?
Yes, I'm struggling with my hearing aid and my mask here. Just give me a second.
Mr. Miller, you have to keep your mask on. Mr. Miller, you have to
I
keep
heard
your
you.
mask on.
I'm putting it back on.
Thank you, sir.
All right, well, I'm sorry for that little fiddling around, but good evening, Mayor Velasquez and members of the City Council. My name is Marty Miller. I'm the developer of the Twin Oaks Housing Project. I'm here today because we believe the city is significantly overcharging us on development impact fees. But first, for the benefit of the new council members, let me explain why Twin Oaks is an important project for the city of Hollister. Twin Oaks is an active lifestyle community currently under construction for senior adults. It includes 168 new single-family, single-story detached homes, plus a 4,700 square foot community center with a fitness gym, movement studio for yoga, tai chi, dance, and more, a demonstration kitchen, and plus sports courts and a heated swimming pool in a park-like setting. It will include a staff that provides a program of weekly activities for residents and a concierge desk to assist both individual and group outings and travel. For Hollister residents with parents living outside the area, Twin Oaks presents a wonderful opportunity to bring their parents home to Hollister, to live closer to them and their grandchildren. Twin Oaks enjoys wide support from Hollister residents, and at our model opening event, Councilmember Spencer presented us with a certificate of recognition by the California State Assembly for becoming the first active adult lifestyle community in San Benito County. The Twin Oaks development offers important benefits to Hollister. In many cases, it will reunite families. And seniors have a discretionary money to spend locally, thereby supporting the local economy. And finally, seniors have free time to babysit for grandchildren and to volunteer for local service organizations. Both City Manager Miller and Mayor Velasquez advised me to come here and request a hearing on the overcharges at an upcoming City Council meeting. Our preference is to be on the January 19th meeting agenda to correct as soon as possible these unfair overages. I want to emphasize that we're not asking for a discount. We're only asking that the fees the city charges are fair according to state code. The cities need to recover their cost of services provided. And the 2019 Development Impact Fee Update Study that the city both commissioned and adopted. For council members who have not yet visited the community,
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
okay,
Our
I just
next
want to
speaker.
say I'd welcome to give them personal tours. Thank you.
Elias
Thank-
Salinas.
Take off my shield. Apparently y'all couldn't hear me before. So thank you, council members and Mayor Velasquez. I would like to thank for bringing out the ordinance on Thursday, and unfortunately it wasn't passed. I know that some of the council members thought that it was too soon of an ordinance to bring up, but we have been in COVID for more than 9 months. So maybe it was too soon for the new council members, but I would encourage them to reevaluate the decision and go through the ordinance, and if they have any kind of amendment to the ordinance that would make them comfortable so they could bring it back to the council would be great. Our numbers are increasing. They're not getting any lower. They keep going up higher, and this is a very serious matter that we're in. The hospital, Hollister actually made national news over the weekend. I don't know if any of you saw it. This is the second time that Hollister has made the national news. The first time, actually 3 times. The first time was because we were the first community to open back up. The second time is because we lost Noya Montoya. And the third time is because we were over capacity at 130% for the hospital. So this is really a serious matter, and I would encourage you all to bring it back around, sit with your staff members, sit with the city attorney, and decide what it is that can be done to, in this, I want to emphasize that this ordinance that was brought forth, all the speakers were more on their voicing that they did not want you to shut down small businesses. The ordinance had nothing to do with shutting down small businesses. The ordinance was that it was to enforce what the state mandate. The state is the one that decided that by tiers what needed to get closed down. So anyway, I'd also like to bring to the council's attention, and sometime in the January, no later than February, I would request that the council please reconsider or consider the position of the police chief. We've had interim chief Carlos Reynoso on for quite some time now. I personally believe he's deserving of being promoted to police chief, but that's entirely up to the city council. But I think that we should, you all should come forward with some type of a motion to an agendized item to go forward through going through the process of looking at other candidates and also considering interim chief Carlos Reynoso for the position. He's been doing this job for a very long time. He's a resident here. I'm not going to deny that maybe I'm a little bit prejudiced on who you should hire, but I think that the city has gone long enough with an interim, and we need to move forward on hiring a full-time position. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have no more speakers, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. We're going to move to item D1, City Manager's Report.
Thank you, Mayor. So on the Fallon Road mini storage, if I remember correct, when this came back before us, that we were going to handle that through the discussion of the general plan, but Steph and I can go review it again to make sure where we're at and make that the appropriate recommendation. For the impact fees for the Twin Oaks, did council, can I get consensus if you want that brought forward at the next council meeting?
I personally think the impact fees are what they are, and if anything, we're still struggling with our impact fees.
I don't want to bring it back.
Okay, and then we'll move on to the police.
Hold on.
Oh, sorry.
I think we should bring it back and with the new council and have us all reevaluate the impact fees.
Let's bring it back.
And I would certainly support another discussion.
Okay, and then for the police chief position, we actually opened that position up on Friday to be open till January 29th. So we are ahead of the request of the public. And that's it, all I have to report.
Thank you, sir. Move to item D2.
Trainings and conferences, city clerk has something to say.
Last week, Nova and I attended New Law and Elections via teleconference. And we will be bringing some, well, I actually have maybe one or two of them for you tonight, but some of the changes that are coming through, some of the changes in the new law, and even there were some changes for elections. So it was good information. Nova, you have anything you want to add to that? No. Okay, just so you, we will be bringing something back on the new assembly bills and Senate bills.
Is that it?
That completes D2.
Thank you. Move to item E1, public hearing.
Is Maria present?
Maria, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Maria Mendez. I am the Cannabis Affairs Manager within the Development Services Department. Tonight, the item before you is for the Agripharma Ltd. appeal hearing. On August 3rd of 2020, the City Council revoked cannabis regulatory permits for Agripharma Extraction LLC, Agripharma Nursery LLC, and Agripharma Distribution LLC, pursuant to Hollister Municipal Code, Section 5.42120, in accordance with Section 5.42270 of the City of Hollister Municipal Code. Any decision regarding or pertaining to the regulatory permit process may be appealed. Additionally, I would like to say that this item was tabled from November 16th of 2020 to tonight's meeting of December 21st of 2020. Briefly, I won't go through the entire timeline, but this revocation is a result of various violations of the City of Hollister Municipal Code that were issued by the police department of the City of Hollister. In addition to that, on May 13th of 2020, representatives from the California Department of Public Health, the CDPH, and the Hollister Police Department inspected the facility located at 1851 Airway Drive, Airway Drive, I apologize, which is where Agripharma Ltd. is housed. And during the inspection, they discovered multiple violations related to the tracking and tracing of cannabis products as well. On May 22nd of 2020, Interim Chief of Police recommended that due to the repeated violations of the Hollister Municipal Code and the permit and licensing agreements, the City of Hollister revoked the cannabis regulatory permits for Agripharma Nursery, Agripharma Extraction, and Agripharma Distribution. Later, after the revocation, on September 16th of 2020, the City of Hollister received the original request from Asimov Law Firm to appeal the decision that had been taken back in August 3rd of 2020. which was the revocation of the regulatory permits. Tonight, staff is requesting and recommending that the City of Hollister City Council conduct the appeal hearing and motion to either overturn or uphold the denial and revocation of cannabis regulatory permits for agri-pharma extraction, agri-pharma nursery, and agri-pharma distribution. I am available for questions, and I believe Officer Christopher Wells is also available here tonight to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any questions from the council before we open to public hearing?
I'll wait till after public hearing.
Okay, thank you. This time we'll open it to the public hearing. Do we have any speakers?
Yes.
Good evening. Am I gonna be within the 3 minutes or am I not?
You have 3 minutes.
Yeah, but,
3 minutes.
I requested in the papers that I do not follow.
So do we go to Ilya?
Maybe Elia will address and then I will be as a, because I think with my request, I specifically requested that I do not follow the 3-minute rule because of the municipal code section that specifically says that if I'm representing the entity specifically, then I don't have to follow this 3-minute rule.
Okay, so the only speaker card we have is Ilya Salinas.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. I was issued a citation. I lost my badge working at a cannabis company. I lost my badge. I reported that I lost my badge, and I was 1,000% positive that the citation that was given to me for $1,000 was incorrect. So I appealed it. During the appeal process, part of the process is that you must pay the $1,000 before you go through the appeal process. The appeal process was heard by local attorney Bill Tiffany, and his position was that I won the appeal, and I'm going to quote, Officer Wells' position that the safety plan is essentially incorporated into the 5.42 city ordinance is understandable given his job bringing new business into compliance with the new local regulations. However, the language of section 5.42.250 labeled compliance, the specific section under which Ms. Salinas was cited, only references medical cannabis facilities and states that compliance must be with open quotes, additional operating procedures and measures that as may be imposed as conditions of approval of a regulatory permit, period, close quotes. There is no clear evidence presented in this case which showed that the permit issued by the city to Agri-Pharma was specifically conditioned on compliance with a safety plan. The permit application form apparently submitted by Agri-Pharma to the city and which was presented during the hearing on this matter were signed and dated prior to June 19, 2018, the date shown in the copy of the safety plan presented at the hearing. In any event, the citation was issued to Ms. Salinas and an individual, not the company. Furthermore, under section 5.42.290 of the chapter of 5.42, labeled implemented procedures, it appears that the city council must approve additional regulations which are developed and implemented the ordinance and permit process. Officer Wells agreed that the safety plan had not been adopted by the city council. This ruling was dated January 4th, 2019. That's almost a year later. Actually, almost 2 years. So the problem here is that the Cannabis Affairs Manager, Maria Mendez, Police Officer Chris Wells, and City Attorney Jason Epperson failed in their duty to represent Chris Wells appropriately. What should have done is this matter should have gone back, been brought to the City Council for adoption, and they have failed to adopt. Therefore, there is no regulations. Should attorney, as an administrative officer, rule this, should it go to court, the judge is going to rule the same way. Thank you.
There are no more speakers.
No more speakers. Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and the council members. Let me take my second mask. I was sitting with two masks so that you can hear me well.
Make sure you talk right into the mic for him, though.
Okay.
It's adjustable.
Okay, hold on 1 second. So like this, and then I think it's better. So I'm here today representing AgriPharma, and I submitted my position already, and I believe the council members reviewed the position, and I just wanted to emphasize certain pieces of this so that you can ask necessary questions if needed. As I explained in this, like Maria Mendez said, she's right. There was an inspection on May 13, and California Department of Public Health visited us, AgriPharma, and issued a statement that there is put an embargo on certain products, stating that, hey, AgriPharma, you have to fix this, and we'll give you some time to fix it. And we said, okay. So it was May 13. At the time when they asked us the questions why this situation actually is happening, we explained to them that, look, on February 22nd, we had employees who kind of striked out and walked out of the building, and they left everything just like that. Whatever you're seeing right now in the extraction room and the laboratory room, everything that you see is exactly the same way, the way they left. No one else touched it. So, we explained that to them, and then they said, okay, that's fine. As long as you can rectify the problem, then we're good to go. It was on May 13th. As I then explained in the factual statement, what happened was that immediately after, on the May 15th, Officer Wells, it was Friday, 3 p.m., invited me over to the AgriPharma and give me the notice to comply and produce the documents, and with a 3-day requirement. Specifically, he says by Tuesday, 3 o'clock, you have to produce all the documents. It was 3 p.m. That's the very important part, because it limited everything that we had. We didn't have any other opportunity. It was 3 p.m. on Friday, and everyone is gone. There was nobody else anyways, but there was at least one individual, Steve Igal Chapo, Stephen, who we brought in from Pennsylvania to make sure that he comes and then addresses certain issues. So on the 15th of May, that happened, and then on I informed Officer Wells. I said, sir, with all due respect, I said, we don't have enough time. 1 day is not enough time to produce documents and fix the problems. We cannot do that. Saturday and Sunday, no one works. Security guards are not working. But Officer Wells, like I said in my papers, he said it's a policy. And I don't know what policy he was referring to. I don't know. I still don't understand which policies were implemented at the time when they were limited us for 3-day production of documents. Ordinance doesn't speak to that effect at all. Ordinance does not speak to that effect at all. So what happened that immediately on the 22nd, on the 19th, we submitted our documentations, and on the 22nd, we received a notice of violation and a revocation with suspension. It was really quick, really fast. The State Department did not even, they did not even send us the note yet about what kind of embargo it was, because they promised that they're going to send us the information. They didn't do it yet, and we already were revoked. On around, on May 26 or 28, about that time, Steve Chapo, I need to mention Steve Chapo. Steve Chapo is an Israeli individual. He's a citizen of the United States, but he came here in 2017, 2018, and he was the COO of the company. He was the main guy. Officer Wells knows him really well. He established the company. He set up the training, and he trained all those employees who left the company. So we had to bring him in May. And when the inspection on the May 13th took place, I was there and he was there. And at that time, we actually signed the papers where we stated that, look, they put the State Department put Steve Chapo's name in there, but he couldn't sign it. And I said, don't worry about it. I will sign it because your position is still to be assigned. So Officer Wells knew about it. At the time meeting, we said it, and that's why I signed it. I have this record I can produce per your request. So what happened was after that, on the 26th, right after on the 22nd, when they suspended our license, on the 22nd, on 26th, Steve Chapo was with the client of the company. And I believe Officer Wells appeared and said that you cannot be here, or you cannot touch this product because you are going to be violating the law. And so at that time, I believe Steven said that, well, look, I don't want to be responsible and liable for what other employees did. And then when Officer Wells requested, are you the employee? He said, no, I'm not yet employee. I don't know what the conversation took place there, but he was definitely an individual who was granted an access by the company. He was given an access by the company. He went through the background check by law. Ordinance requires that every person who comes into the facility needs to go through background check. He did that. He submitted all the documents. He had all the access. And suddenly, the same day on the 26th or 27th, right after the clients left, I believe around the same time, his badge was removed. His access was denied. Anyway, long story short, this is very important because he was the only individual who was able to or could have saved the company, rectified the issues, put together the system, because he is the one who set up the system, and then all these employees who walked out needed to follow it. So with his absence, and he was not able to come in anymore, I requested in June, we had a meeting because there was an emergency on the property. I requested, we were talking with Officer Wells, and I said, Officer, what is the reason you are denying his access? He is the employee, he is the COO, he may not be employee. In my papers, I actually referred to the ordinance code section where it says 542060, which dictates that, it's not only every manager, any employee or individual can go through the background check and get access to the facility. So after that meeting that we had with him, and when he said that, he's not an employee, and I start writing an email with requesting an explanation as to why that particular individual's access was denied. In my exhibits, you would be able to see that no response was given by the Officer Wells. The only thing that was stated is that per law, a non-employee cannot be on the premises. I don't know which law, and I kept asking him, please inform me what law is that does not allow the individual to be on the premises. I specifically stated that the badge, the access, the word badge in ordinance doesn't appear. It appears only once, and it's in section 542(180)H. And then access is also used only 7 times, but it doesn't say who has access and what kind of access. So it clearly is that officer was following some type of safety plan or procedures or policies that are not in ordinance. He was following something. Again, it's nothing against the officer individually. It's just he was following some type of rule. And we don't know what this rule is. So after that, after multiple attempts, we had the situation where the single individual was denied access to the building, who could have saved the records and put the system together, and we could have moved on. But there's very interesting situation here. When we asked, we said that, well, how are we want to fix the problem. We want to fix the problem, but if you want to fix the problem, you need to go inside and you need to touch certain things, identify how to solve the problem. But if we go and we try to do something, we're violating the law because we are, per officer, because we are now touching product without having a license. So the question is, so if we don't have a license, how we're supposed to go and fix the problem? That's a big issue that we were facing, and we never had a chance to resolve it. So as I continued my papers, what I was trying to say is that, look, the policies were followed. A safety plan right now, for example, Elias Salinas described it, and I actually quoted, not quoted, but submitted as an attachment of this decision, where it actually clearly says, look, to the police officer, says you cannot follow safety plans or anything like that unless they are approved by the city council. And the law, which is 542-290, specifically says, it actually specifically says that, hey, first, you cannot even issue a permit, a license, unless those written regulations are approved. So technically speaking, going back a little bit off, I'm saying that most of the licenses that were granted without written regulations. So we were lucky to get the license because the law specifically says that we are not supposed to get the license unless those written regulations are approved by the city council. In my emails to the city attorney and city manager, Maria Mendez, I requested multiple times, please, I said, can you refer me anywhere? Where can I find written regulations that are approved by city council that actually describe the procedures? I had until today, I still don't have any response. There's none. I went through all the municipal codes, tried to find anything. There's no approved regulatory written regulations. Implementing ordinance. Ordinance, basically what it is that it says, yes, here is the law, yes, it is allowed, cannabis is allowed in Hollister. That's what it says. Then whoever created this ordinance, they were absolutely amazing because they said, yes, we state that under the law, we are allowing cannabis in the city. But then they said that, but before we move forward, we want to make sure that there are written regulations approved by the city council. Unfortunately, those regulations were never implemented. And that's exactly why Elias Salinas was the winner of her case in administrative judge with a prominent attorney here, Bob Tiffany, who actually opined. He said, you know what? Yeah, if there are no regulations, there are no procedures. And if there are no procedures, then everyone who is like us, who is violated, or we are the victim of those violations, whatever it is, then our rights as a due process, and he writes the same way. He says, well, there is an issue of due process, but I don't want to discuss it because it doesn't matter at this point because on its face, the law clearly says that without written regulations, none of these procedures, policies, or whatever the officer is relying on it really matters. So I'm here today because in a way we suffered a lot. 7 months without operation, without being able to rectify the situation, we suffered. But maybe it's a good thing for the community. Why? Because through this process, we're identifying the shortcomings of the law that we have in the community. We have the ordinance, but we don't have implemented policies. We don't have the procedures.
So in an effort not to repeat the same thing, I think we understand your point on that. Is there anything else you want to add other than repeating the...
Yes, I just wanted to... Yes, thank you, Mayor. What I wanted to say is that, look, this is the company that invested about $4 to $5 million in this community. Federal government is already passed the Congress, it's going to be passing Senate, and in this year, 2021, we're going to be federally approved. And so while we invested so much, I think losing such a license for violations that were dictated by policies or procedures that doesn't exist or is not approved by the city council. I think that we're just going to be the victim of the situation, and unfortunately, the only way, and that's why we're here asking this council members to vote and overturn the decision, because I think it was mistaken, and I think the council, city council, and city management needs to work on implementing the proper policies.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there any other speakers?
I have no more speakers, Mr. Mayor.
At this time, we will close public hearing. Go back to council. If you have any questions, council,
I have questions.
go ahead.
Okay, Officer Wells, are you there in, the chambers?
Yes, ma'am.
You are, could you walk up to the podium, please?
He's coming up to the podium.
I'm here, ma'am.
Good evening, Officer Wells.
Good evening, ma'am.
On the day that you went out there and you inspected, and then this Mr. Choppa was there, were you wearing body cam?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
So you have video of him ripping off his badge, giving it to you, and saying he didn't want no part of this operation.
So let me back up. The body cam that you're talking about occurred on May 21st when I attempted to serve the company with a notice of violation for their failure to produce the records requested. And at that time, Mr. Chapo told me that he was not an employee of AgriPharma, had not been an employee of the company, had not received any compensation from the company at all, and that he was not going to be continuing any further actions with the company.
Okay. Officer Wells, on October 8th, 2018, was AgriPharma's adult use manufacturing license suspended?
Yes, ma'am.
And that was for violations, multiple violations?
Well, that was at that time, they only had a medicinal license through the state. And so talking with members of the California Department of Public Health, they stated that they could only produce medicinal cannabis at the time. We met with the company and informed them that we were suspending their city adult use license at that time until such time as they got their state adult use. At that time, the company, although they were still allowed to produce medicinal, as they were claiming they were doing, they shut down all production altogether. We learned from their key extractors, the three people in charge of their manufacturing process, that they had actually been producing adult use cannabis products the entire time, even under just their medicinal cannabis license.
Okay, and so on August 3rd, or when their first license was suspended, were they not warned that if this happened again, their licenses would be revoked?
Yes, ma'am. We have had a meeting with them. Maria Mendez, former city manager, William Avera, Lieutenant Dan Wynn, and myself met with the key owners and key representatives from the company. And at that time, they were warned by the city manager that any further violations of their license could be revocation of it.
Okay. And when all this was taking place in 2020, they were asked multiple times to hand over documentation on the plants that were in the building, and they could not do that, right?
That is correct, ma'am. Not only by state law were they required to have such records, but also according to Municipal Code 5.42.020, they were required to handle or have records of all cannabis products that were brought in, taken from, or produced on the facility there. They did not have those records, and as part of that 5.42.020, they are required to maintain those on the premise and produce those records upon request.
Okay. So let's move now to August 3rd, 2020, when AgriPharma and their attorney came in front of us and we revoked their license, all of them. How many days did they have to inform the city of an appeal process?
10 days, ma'am, per Muni Code.
10 days.
Yes, ma'am.
And that is policy, right?
That is in the Muni Code. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Can you tell me exactly when they applied for the, this hearing? The appeal hearing?
According to Maria Mendez's staff report, they submitted, the City of Hollister received the request on September 16th, 2020.
October 6th, or September 16th. So that's a good month and a half later, sort of say. At
Yes.
least 4 weeks.
Yes, ma'am.
And that wasn't 10 days. Okay. So I have a few more questions. What are the requirements for them to get back their license? Say, do they have to have a building?
Yes, ma'am. They would have to have a
And
facility.
as of November 17th, 2020, were they not evicted and locked out of that building?
Yes, they were, ma'am.
Okay, so they don't have a building.
Not at this time.
Let me ask you a few more questions because I'm just kind of curious about this. Do they have outstanding bills in Hollister?
Yes, ma'am, they do.
Could you tell us what outstanding bills they have?
As of this morning, in speaking with our finance department, they have 3 separate outstanding water and sewer bills. The first one is a water and sewer bill for their building located at 1851 Airway. That bill is 8 months overdue for a total of $1,255.54. They have a landscaping water bill for that same building that is also 8 months overdue for a total of $649.72. And they have an outstanding sewer and water bill for a residence that they were renting for their employee. That is also 8 months overdue and a total of $904.50.
Okay. So, they don't have a building and they can't pay their bills. I really think they do not deserve an appeal process. That's all I have to say.
Any other questions from council?
I've got some comments, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, sir.
Well, I spoke to some people, but apparently not as many as Vice Mayor Spencer. Kudos to you, Ms. Spencer. Good job on your research. I spoke to some consultants. I spoke to our staff. I spoke to the gentleman that was up there presenting. And I'm with Vice Mayor Spencer on this. I think from what I'm hearing from you, sir, if you're still in the audience, is you're saying that we didn't even have a law to give you a license, but you're saying that the laws we use to close you down are also the same laws, but they're not applicable. So what I'm hearing is that when it benefits you, then it benefits you, but when it doesn't, then it doesn't. And ultimately, I think what it comes down to is what Vice Mayor Spencer had pointed out too, is the record keeping wasn't really up to par. Aside from all the other things that we heard from the staff and all the other infractions, the records were not up to par. And this is really painful, I'll be honest with you. And I think I might have said it when you were first here, because we are very pro-business. We really want to have partners. We really want to be supportive and give some leniency, but we need responsible partners. We need responsible business partners here in the city of Hollister. And I just don't think that you guys have proven to be that. So my position has not wavered either. I am going to keep with upholding the decision that we made on the last time we saw you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions or comments from council?
Mayor Velasquez, Tim Burns, I have a few questions.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. So, I heard what both speakers said in relation to this, and so this may be more of a question for our city attorney, but, and I don't want to confuse the two issues because it sounds like there are two separate issues here. The one involving Ms. Salinas, which she went through an administrative hearing, and the hearing officer found in her favor, as I understand, having reviewed the documents and heard the testimony this evening. And so I guess my question in regards to that process would be, I understand she had to pay a $1,000 deposit to move forward to have the hearing, and I'm wondering if that is a best practice and if it doesn't create a chilling effect, because in some cases, people for administrative hearings might not be able to afford that $1,000, and so they can't move forward with due process as a result. And so, can you speak to that, please, Mr. Epperson?
Certainly. Councilmember Burns, whether or not the city wants to maintain that would be a policy decision. I can tell you that it's common. However, it is not uncommon for communities not to require that prior payment. But it is very common for communities to require that the payment be made up front prior to engaging in the appeals process.
And
That's something the city council can amend or change or keep moving forward.
And then Councilmember Burns, we do have an economic hardship waiver, which it has been used in the past.
Okay, that was my follow-up question in regards to that part of the process. With regards to this safety plan that I've heard discussion about, I guess my questions would be for Officer Wells. And so the safety plan, is that plan available upon public records request, Officer?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and so is it something, how would I find a copy of that as a layperson wanting to know more?
We have copies available in our PD, in the police department lobby, and upon request to any of us, each licensee is given a copy at the very onset as soon as they submit an application for a license. We sit down with those licensees and we go over those requirements, because that includes window covering, signage, fencing, anything that has to do with the safety and the security of the facility, its employees, and the surrounding public. And then each time that it's updated, it is a living document. As we've moved through this process, we've learned that some things work, some things don't work. And as it gets updated, each licensee is giving a new copy of that safety plan.
And in this case, with this particular business, was that done?
Yes, sir.
Can you talk to me a little bit, Officer, about at least if I understood it correctly, there, as we drew towards the end of this process, they were given some sort of a notice, and they were given 3 days to correct. Did I understand that correctly?
They were given an order to produce the records and a 3-day notice to do so, yes.
And is that a reasonable amount of time based on your experience in this area?
Very much so, sir. All of our other cannabis licensees, when I've gone in there and requested records, requested video, made any of these requests, it's done on the spot. They have it right there on the premises, and they're able to produce those things right away.
And so, as I understand it, that's part of the requirement when they apply and when they're approved. Is that correct, that they need to present those records upon request or demand?
It is part of the Muni Code and part of their license, yes, sir.
Thank you, Officer. That's all I have for you. Mayor, I did want to make one final comment about this particular process. And I would like to see council at some point, through some mechanism, get out of the hearing process for these type of events. I think that this would be much better handled through the administrative hearing process, where the applicant, the business owner, could apply and go through the hearing, and if they disagree with the hearing officer's decision, it could be appealed to Superior Court. I feel like we're mixing politics with enforcement, and I don't believe it's in our best interest or best practice, and so I would just like to state that for the record. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Any other questions or comments?
This is Councilman Perez. I'd like to thank Tim Burns for taking my answer, my question. Yeah, I have no questions.
Thank you. You know, I just want to go back to when we originally set up these, working with the cannabis industry and the time we took to make sure we were getting it right. Nothing's perfect, we all know that. But one of the things I do remember in those conversations is how important it was to have that information available when requested, the standards we're setting, and not get into a situation where we're hearing excuses once somebody was not following those standards. Overall, this industry has done actually a pretty incredible job, much better than I actually ever expected this industry to do. But coming in and having excuses on why you couldn't produce records is not something that's acceptable. That is something that should have been on the premises then, right then and there. It should have been handled. There's a lot of other issues. I'm not going to be going to the other conversations, issues, but this is important to be doing right, so we don't find ourselves in a situation where we're hearing a lot of excuses on why things are not being done correctly. You know, I just definitely want to make sure we're absolutely clear on this, so we don't have this. And this is not the first conversation we've had with your company, and it's a shame, but it was clear, very clear, on what was going to happen if these things continued. So,
Mr. Mayor, this is Maria. I wanted to make one last comment.
go ahead.
If that's okay, thank you. I did wanted to also add that only because we hadn't been discussing the item back then, but due to the continuation of the item, on October 13th, 2020, the California Department of Food and Agriculture, which regulates the nursery part or the cultivation part of the cannabis facilities, was here. And I attended inspections with them as well. And one of the facilities we visited was AgriPharma. And they were obviously not there because they can't, but the owner let us in and we were able to go into the rooms and whatnot, what they have in there, the product. The employee, the inspector who was there, couldn't really make any sense of any of the product that was there because they didn't have any labels. They also take care of the track and tracing of it, and he couldn't back into anything. He asked what the city was doing about this, so I kind of gave him a summary of what has been happening and our efforts to revoke the license. And he said that that was probably the best solution that would also help them. So that was back in October 13th. Also, in response to our ordinance is, I want to say, about 29 pages long. It does lay out basic standards for what the cannabis facilities need to abide by when going through the process. When we first started drafting the ordinance and talking about how we wanted to do things, we agreed that every facility is different. Every building is different. So having a very detailed is very hard because we wanted to give the opportunity and be able to go back and set additional conditions if needed for project specific. And the applicant agrees to that under the conditional use permit. It's a condition that they know that the Hollister Police Department can set additional conditions to their facility, and they agreed to that. They signed that on the regulatory permit. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
Can I respond to the comments that were made by the council members?
No, we're not going to go back and forth. We're
No,
already
not going back because Mr.
Yeah,
Mayor.
back.
No.
Mr. Mayor, this is Jason Epperson. I would say that ultimately that is up to the discretion of the council. However, under normal circumstances, the speaker has had his turn and the council has questioned back and forth. And normally there would be no more speaking on the matter aside from the council. But it is ultimately up to the discretion of the council.
And that is correct. So thank you very much. At this point, I'm going to ask council if there is a motion to either overturn or uphold.
I make a motion that we uphold the revocation of the licenses.
Okay, there's a motion. Was there a second?
I will second that, Mr. Mayor.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Against? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much, everyone. We're going to move now to item F1.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the city council, what you have before you in the ordinance is a second reading of the change of the parking enforcement, section, chapter 10.20 of the Hollister Municipal Code for stopping and standing. If you recall, this is to amend the order so that the reverse parking in downtown and on Monterey Street could be aligned with the city ordinance, and recommend read by title only, waive full reading, and adopt the ordinance amending the chapter.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from council? Do we have any speaker cards?
There are no speakers, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
I make a motion that we accept ordinance number 1199, read by title only, waive full reading, and adopt an ordinance amending Hollister Municipal Code section 10.20.
Thank you. There's a motion. Is there a second?
I will second, Mr. Mayor.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries 5-0. We'll now move to item F2.
Henry, you want to come up?
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. We're here today to ask for a continuance of removing sludge in our industrial pond that's located at 1321 South Street. It's an activity much needed. We've removed approximately 2 tons, dry tons currently, 2,000 dry tons. We're in the process of wanting to remove another 3.5 tons, dry tons. This facility is used for the cannery. It's used specifically for the cannery only. We have very little room capacity-wise in the reservoir. So we are asking for an increase of money to remove another 3.2 tons of sludge.
Thank you. Is there any questions from council? Do we have any speaker cards?
There are no speakers, Mr. Mayor.
So basically, we are going to approach the $4 to $5 million cost for this sludge removal as we originally had talked about.
You are correct, Mayor.
Is that correct?
Yes.
You are correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other questions or comments from council? Is there a motion?
I'll move that we adopt resolution number 2020-229, Mr. Mayor.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. We're going to now move to item
Thank you.
F3.
Christine, is Abraham on the,
It looks like it's Eva.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. This is Eva with the Planning Department. Item F3 as well as F4 and F5 are the annual reports for our community facilities districts. This item is for specifically Community Facilities District number 2, which is a police and fire community facilities district. And
Eva, we're
the
having trouble hearing you.
Okay. Is this any better?
That's
Yes.
better, thank you.
Okay, perfect. So yes, as I was saying, this item is for the annual accountability report for Community Facilities District number 2, which is for police and fire services. So for our new council members and as well as for the public, the community facilities districts are taxing districts. They're property taxing districts that projects, residential projects are annexed into. And these annual accountability reports are brief reports that are prepared by our CFD consultants, and they just discuss all of the taxes that we levied each year for the properties that are in the various districts. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, but this one is for CFD2 for police and fire services.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions from council? Do we have any speaker cards?
There are no speakers, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll move that we adopt resolution number 2020-230.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0 vote. We'll move to item F4.
Thank you again. So as mentioned, this is the same annual accountability report, but this one is for our CFD number 4, which is for public facility services. Again, new development is annexed into CFD 4, and this CFD pays for things like road maintenance, sidewalk maintenance, lighting, landscaping, as well as stormwater, things of that nature. So this is the annual accountability report, again, going over the finances of the CFD and what was levied in this fiscal year.
Thank you very much. Any questions from council? Is there any speakers on this item?
There are no speakers, Mr. Mayor.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept resolution 2020-232,
231.
231.
I
Okay,
second.
there's a motion. Is there a second?
I second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries 5-0. We'll move now to item F5.
Okay, great, thank you. And this is my final item for the night. This is for Community Facilities District number 5. And I am not sure why, but it says Public Facility Services. It really should say Police and Fire Services. CFD number 5 replaced CFD number 2. So new projects are annexed into CFD number 5. It is at a different rate based on a 2018 study, but it's for Police and Fire Services as well.
Okay, is there any questions from council? Any speakers?
There are no speakers, Mr. Mayor.
Is there a motion with those corrections?
I will make a motion that we accept resolution, oh, let me find it again, I lost it.
232.
323.
Two.
Yeah, 2.
With the corrections, it's not,
With the corrections, amending the resolution.
thank you. There's a motion, is there a second?
I second.
Second.
Motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries, 5-0 vote. We're gonna move to item F6.
Christine, that should be Renee.
Renee, go ahead.
And Renee, you're on mute.
How about now?
We
We can hear you. Please go ahead.
You can hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Right. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. Renee Perales, CIP Manager for the Administrative Services Department. Tonight before you is Resolution 2020-233, which will authorize staff to call for sealed bids for the Central Avenue Traffic Calming Project. In 2019, the City Council adopted a resolution approving appropriation of funds for a traffic calming study. And in June 2020, the City Council adopted resolution number 2020-124, approving the Central Avenue Traffic Calming Report prepared by our consultant, Kimley Horn. Kimley Horn has now prepared the contract drawings and specifications required to construct the Central Avenue Traffic Calming Project, CIP C2004. The plans are now substantially complete for bidding purposes. Staff recommends that the City Council authorize the call for sealed bids for this project. Do you have any questions?
Any questions from council? Any speaker cards? Is somebody saying something? I can't hear.
We have no speakers, Mr. Mayor.
No speakers? Okay, we'll go back to council. Was there any questions or comments from council? Renee, I do have a quick question for you. Central Avenue ended up with the chip seal. How is that going to affect this project? I don't think that's going to hold very well. And we're still seeing some of the issues from that project.
How is the chip seal going to hold up?
No, but with the improvements we're doing, is it going to be a problem later where the improvements outlast what the chip seal project did?
I would have to defer it back to the engineer on that.
Can we get some answers on that? That's going to be very important. I mean, I want to see this continue, but I just want to make sure that we're addressing that or acknowledging that could be a potential issue.
Yeah, I can certainly bring that up to the design engineer.
Thank you. Is there any other questions or comments? Is there a motion?
I'll move that we adopt resolution number 2020-233, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Hollister authorizing a call for sealed bids for the Central Avenue Traffic Calming Project, CIP number C2004, Administrative Services.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
So moved.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. We'll move to item F7.
I'll have Christine put up the presentation. Thank you very much. So I'm going to start out with this is for our final quarter for 2019-2020. Usually we have this done in around October as we get ready for our auditors, but we've kind of had an adventurous year with COVID, so we are a little bit behind, and we'll get back caught up. Hoping in January we'll actually go through. My goal is to do quarter one and quarter two to discuss the current budget. However, we are closing out our last fiscal year and have the auditors begin. We just wanted to make sure we go through and give you at least a status of how we did. So our revenues, as you can see, came in about 107% of budget, which is really good. No significant changes other than you can see in licenses and permits, it was at 60%. That's because when we did the 2-year budget, we budgeted cannabis revenue, kind of appropriate for tonight, and license and permits, but we actually kind of broke up the cannabis by categories and we moved them down to charges for services. So as you can see, that was over by 140%, so it actually just balanced itself out. So with the revenue highlights, revenues came in about $2 million over budget, actually $5 million over the original budget. If you remember right, we did, for the council members that were here, we did a 2-year budget. I will say, I think we'll go back to just doing the 1-year budgets. The carryovers kind of made it difficult, and especially in like a year with COVID, it's really hard to make a 2-year budget work. But Measure W, which is our transaction tax, that came in about 61,000 over projections, as well as our Bradley Burns came in about 357,000 over our projections. The one-time funding sources, which we use for one-time costs like major repairs or purchases, the plant check charges came in 94,000 over projections, and the building permits came in about 36,000 over projections. So our expenditures, same kind of thing. They came in pretty much right on schedule, about 99%. So unless there's any questions on that, I will just kind of keep moving forward. Oops, sorry, go ahead.
City Manager Miller.
Sure.
I noticed that code enforcement was 150%. Can you speak to the cause?
Yeah, we kind of changed some of the allocations. When we first brought in our second officer, We were having them paid out of the utility funds because it was kind of during the drought years where we would, basically, we were the water police for the area, and that includes Sunny Slope. So when that requirement went away, we still kept the officer, and so we've had some additional costs because of that. Putting them, now they're not doing utilities as much as they're doing general fund. So when we did a 2-year budget, there was a lot more expenditures in the first year, so they kind of carried over to the second year.
Thank you, sir.
Sure. So the general fund one-time expenditures that we did in this last year totaled about $3 million, and we did about $400,000 in street funding, $127 to senior discounts for water, sewer, solid waste for them, about $500,000 for community grants. So we've helped out some of the nonprofits, the HDA and the chamber, and the homeless shelter. About $180,000 for the transient occupancy tax reimbursement for one of the hotels. We spent about another $880,000 in the training simulator, which was actually offset by grant funds. $300,000 in an arborist for our downtown, or not downtown, but for our city trees. $350,000 in park improvements, and another $430,000 in various equipment. So our ending available balance at the end of the fiscal year was $4.6 million. This was a reduction of about $338,000, which is actually much better than what we budgeted for. I know that, like I say, that expenditures, we had more expenditures than revenue, but we actually did budget for a reduction in our fund balance. But at the end of the year, we have a reserve right now about 18% of our 2021 budgeted expenditures. And we still have about $500,000 in reserve for housing. So one area that has always been a concern for the council is, are we allocating our engineering salaries? So the engineering salaries and benefits came in about 110%, which when you look at the engineering inspection revenue, it came in about 110% of budget. So that gives us a feeling that it's right on as expected. Now, the other area that we always look at is the fire overtime. It was at $176,000, but at least compared to prior year, it is down in the overtime. Like I said, compared to last year, it was down. Salary, the total personnel cost was about 107%. And just to make everybody aware that we did have about $53,000 in overtime related to the strike teams.
City manager, question, please.
Sure, go ahead.
So will any of that overrun be offset by the state?
No.
So we just absorb that?
We absorb it.
Okay. Is that consistent with previous or past years?
It has been consistent with past years, but it does make it kind of difficult for other departments that have actually had savings.
Thank you, sir.
So kind of to that. So part of this presentation and this, we are asking for a resolution adopting some appropriation changes for some departments that have gone over. For non-department, that was for insurance claims or sales tax consultants. Finance, we have some changes. That was an allocation actually for myself and for some other staff between HR and city manager that we've fixed over the last 2 years. Fire personnel, we just went over the overtime, so that was a major part of it. Engineering for the cost, like I say, for them to assist with the additional revenue that came in or projects because of that. Same thing with the planning. There was an increase. There are inspection charges. We have 4-Leaf that does our inspections. They get a percentage of that revenue, so that's always actually a good thing that we have to increase their budget. That means we have actually additional revenues coming in. So next thing was vehicle maintenance. We had quite a bit of repair for vehicles in streets and fire. And then solid waste, our contract with San Benito County Solid Waste, the county actually billed us this current year and the prior year, so we had 2 years worth of billings that we had to absorb. So that's really for the general fund. Then for the other funds, we have just some more grant related, or like say Measure W, more funds came in than we expected, so we needed additional appropriation so that we can transfer that to the general fund. Say park dedication, we did have more revenues coming in, so we actually spent some of that. Same with TDA, the OTS grant, which is Office of Traffic Safety. The SAFER fund, it was a newer one. FEMA and CARES Act were brand new this year because of COVID. We didn't have any kind of budget for them. And then traffic impact fees for some of the road projects that we did, storm drain. We had some housing expenditures, and the CFD number 4 that we just discussed had some additional expenditures also. So with that, if you have any questions, and also we actually ask that you approve the supplemental appropriations. Sorry that was a quick one, but when we come in January, we'll try to give a little bit more, or can spend time with finance department. If you want to spend time to go over the budgets, we'll go over those also.
Thank you for the update. Any questions from council? Do we have any speaker cards?
We do not have any speakers, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
I make a motion that we accept resolution 2020-334 as stated.
234.
234, sorry.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second, Mr. Mayor.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We're going to move now to item G1, reports from city council members regarding their committees. I don't think we have, Councilmember Burns, you don't have any committees yet. So we're going to go ahead and move over to Mr. Perez. I believe it's the same situation. And Councilmember, or Vice Mayor Spencer, do you have anything?
I had my very last MBARD meeting. I said goodbye to my fellow directors, and that's all I've had.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Resendez.
Not many committees are meeting these days, but we did have a COG meeting today. Yeah, so basically they were talking about, I don't have the direct words for it, but it's a plan, it's a transportation plan, and they were talking about what we essentially, as a city and all the different agencies, what they want to allocate monies towards, or what they want to take off of the table. So it's interesting. It's very, very so much to look into. It's a little overwhelming, but they're going to be working through that. And yeah, and it was Jaime de la Cruz's last COG meeting, and he got presented with something. So that's it.
Thank you, sir. I don't have any updates. Councilmember Resendez talked about the COG, and it's the project list basically for the next 20 plus years, 20 to 30 years, totaling about $1.5, $1.6 billion for projects throughout the county. We're going to go ahead and move now to item G2, informational reports from City Council. Councilmember Burns?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not sure if this is the appropriate place or time, but I'm going to rely on somebody to direct me. I would request that for the January 19th, 2021 council meeting that we place on the agenda a proposed code of conduct and ethics ordinance for discussion. And my second comment was in relationship or regards to the recruitment for the chief of police position. I'm wondering if at some point there can be a conversation. I know there's been some expressed interest in a somewhat inclusive process, and not having reviewed the application, I don't know what that's going to look like, and so I don't know if it's appropriate for the city manager to comment now or at some time in the future, but I would like to have that conversation as well. Thank you.
Sure, we can have that
Sir,
conversation.
Mr. Burns, what was your first comment about COVID? I didn't hear it clearly.
I didn't make a comment about COVID, Mayor.
I think he's talking about your code of ethics.
Code of ethics, I'm
Oh.
sorry.
Okay, I couldn't hear it. Thank you. Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to Councilmember Perez.
Earlier we were talking about, or it was brought up something about the Fallon Road storage. Is that a time to bring this up, or I'm trying to get used to this, so bear with me.
You can.
Because I'd like to find out more about that. We also, Twin Creeks, we were going to find out more. And is this my last chance to make a comment for the night?
Correct.
So I'd just like to address the public and you know, we all know that we're going through a very serious crisis. It's not even, someone's mentioned, it's not even an emergency, it's a crisis. And, you know, we didn't pass last week's, I don't know if I can say all this, so stop me if I'm wrong. Just because we didn't pass last week's emergency ordinance doesn't mean that we're not going to revisit this to keep people in compliance. This is very serious. We all know someone that's been affected by this, and I just urge you during these, until we can get something in place, not just for the businesses, but us as private citizens, we need to come together. I would urge you to think about the safety of your families. This is holiday season. I know people want to get together, large gatherings. Please use your better discretion. Be safe. Merry Christmas.
Thank you, sir. Vice Mayor Spencer?
At this time, I have nothing to add. Just happy holidays to everybody, and be safe, and watch the large gatherings, please, and wear your mask and social distance, please.
Thank you. Councilmember Resendez?
Same, Mr. Mayor. I think this is the last meeting we're going to have before the holidays. So happy holidays, everybody that's watching, everybody at the chambers, the council members, and you, Mr. Mayor. Again, just as was reiterated, I want to reiterate what was said by Vice Mayor Spencer and Councilmember Perez. Please stay home, heed the warnings. Our hospital is over capacity. The other hospitals are, you know, we're doing the same thing here. We're staying home. We're going against traditions. Typically, we get together these large Mexican gatherings, but it's just not safe. So please stay home, everyone, and we'll see you guys next year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I too want to say, obviously, careful. This is not a good time. It's we know it's dangerous out there, and take extra precautions. As mentioned, hospitals at full capacity. But I did want to take this time to say Merry Christmas to everyone. Happy New Year. Thank you to everyone involved in the city, and of course, all the volunteers out there that help our community. In these crazy times, somehow all of you have managed to pull this through for our community. And let's just pray for a year where we can someday laugh about how crazy this all was, and actually probably cry. But please stay safe. And thank you again, everyone, for everything you've done for our community. With that, we're going to go to City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. So pretty much like everybody said, but I really want to have this go out to the staff. With this being the last meeting of our calendar year, without them, there's a lot of things that would not have been done around here. When, you know, we had the parklets. They showed all their amazing part by getting the parklets, getting the roads closed, open and closed numerous times for outside dining. I just really appreciate what they've done, and I wish all our staff that they have a quiet Christmas at home, but I want to just hope they understand how much I care, and I appreciate all the work that they've done. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. City Attorney?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No statement.
Thank you. Chief?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, only thing I need to report or have to report is that earlier last week we met with Mbasia, the police chiefs, part of our insurance group, and it was a really good meeting where they're getting all together to offer this training. With COVID, the training has been canceled on so many occasions that they're trying to provide training for our administrative staff and our frontline officers, and utilizing Zoom and being more efficient that way. So we're looking forward to working more closely with Mbasia and to acquiring those trainings that are so much needed. But that's all.
Thank you, sir. City Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I'm going to be coming back in January with your consensus tonight to request an appropriation for some additional money for 2 items. The first is going to be a complete legal review. It'll be a legal review process. There'll be an attorney assigned to our project that's going to examine every title, chapter, and section and line of code in our Hollister Municipal Code to ensure that it's free from conflicts and inconsistencies and conforms to the laws of the state of California. Where they do find discrepancies, they will flag those to us, and then we will have the opportunity to revise our code to match it. Not only will they go over and ensure consistency, they will also provide a hyperlink. The hyperlink will be to the state law reference, so not only will we have where it is referenced, we'll be able to click on it and go straight to the state's website to see that law reference. When it comes to changing our Muni code, the bottom line will be that our city attorney, Mr. Epperson, will be the one that actually says yes or no to whether or not we want to change it one way or another. So it basically says our attorney would be the final decision-making authority for resolution of issues brought up at the conference or noted in the legal memorandum. Because once they find them, then they're going to meet with us, let us know what they find, and then we'll go over it from there. It's not exactly cheap. It's going to be $9,960 about just for the legal review. We would have to also do our number 4 supplement early, which would be another $3,700. And then depending on the teleconference with the municipal code attorney and how long that takes, that is additional money. The state law referencing, hyperlinking is an additional cost, and then it would be $300 annually to keep that referencing, hyperlinking updated. So I would just like to know if that's something that you guys are interested in having me pursue and bring back.
Mr. If I may,
Go ahead, sir.
please. So I spoke to Christine about this earlier, and my understanding, Christine, is that planning municipal code is not going to be updated because they don't provide that service. So I was just wondering if you can partner with planning and see if they have any vendors that can do both of them at the same time. That would be my only suggestion, but of course I support this. Great idea, thank you.
Right, I believe they did say in one of their quotes that zoning was not included, so if.
My apology.
Yes, if there was something that they could, if there's a company out there that would do both, that would be the ultimate.
Thank you. I would agree that, updating the system, the links is a very important part of what we need to have for the public to reference and for ourselves to reference.
I think it's helpful for transparency, but that's just me, so.
And does the council, is there a consensus there to allow her to move forward?
Yes.
Yes? Okay.
Yes.
Great, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Also,
Thank
my
you.
second item that I'll probably be asking for your consensus again to bring forward to our next meeting would be a proposal and fee schedule for demographic redistricting services. And this is something that we will need to perform after the 2020 census has been given to us. Again, not inexpensive, but something that is legally required for us to do. State law AB 849 and AB 1276. So the price on this is going to be about $40,000, give or take. depending on, well, $40,000 is their base fee, and then there's some options. And I can always bring those options back to you when I bring it back, so you can choose which ones you want to do. There's, if we want to have Dr. Lapkoff come and do an in-person meeting, there's a fee for that, and it's less if we have them do it virtually. If you want to provide an online districting website with built-in data and map drawing capabilities so that members of the public can submit districting plans, there's a price for that, and then for them to report those findings.
Okay. Obviously, this is a legal requirement for the census, so something we're going to have to do. Maybe you can send us the information, but I would, well, maybe the council, is there a consensus to go to keep moving forward and getting more information on this pricing to get this done?
Definitely, yes.
Yes.
I would also
Okay.
like, if we could, to stay with the Lapkoff and Goblet, because they already have our mapping in their systems. They did it in 2010 and then again in 2011 when we went to a mayor at large.
All right. Is that it?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll move to item G3 now. Is this your
Item
city clerk?
G3 is me, yes. So this is our city council committees for Council of Governments, local agency formation, city selection and committees. It's a list of all the committees that the council sits on. And we have had some absences with Carol now leaving and the new council being on board. We do need to select who we want to appoint, or we can choose to appoint at a later date, like maybe in January. But on this list as well is a whole, and I think I may have sent this list to you on your laptops and your flash drives. And there's a lot of ad hoc committees that are no longer, they haven't met in I don't know how long. There's a sound wall ad hoc committee, an animal control ad hoc committee, which I think was when we were trying to do the agreement with them a long time ago, and they've never come off. There's the flavored tobacco ad hoc, and I believe that we've already done that. So we put them on, but we don't necessarily take them off. So I would like to request that, since we haven't met on any of these ad hoc committees since before February or January, and we're not currently set up to teleconference or have a schedule on how to meet anyway, and we've already done a resolution saying we're not going to be having ad hocs meet, if maybe we could just kill our list and start fresh. And as ad hoc committees come up and there's a necessity, we can form them then. Or we could go through them one by one and decide which ones you want to do. It's up to you. So that's my recommendation.
And we have, this Councilman Perez, we do have that list on our laptops, you said? I think I remember the file, yeah, okay.
You did get a copy of it, Mr. Perez, did you say?
Yes, it's on our, the laptops,
Okay. Okay.
we have the file.
So we'll get that. I like what you're saying, City Clerk. I think we get the, take care of the core committees first. And then, as we move along, we can start talking about some of the other, if we want to assign more ad hocs. But it is difficult during these times. Even the core committees have been difficult. So you want to assign these committees at the next meeting? Is that your idea?
If you're willing, we could do it tonight on just the core committees.
I'd like to talk to the council members first and see what they like to be involved with before we do that.
So I could bring it back either January 19th or February 4th?
I think probably January 19th, if the council's good with that, if you think you're ready for what you'd like to be involved with. That
That's
works.
fine. That's fine, Mr. Mayor, but I've got a question. So I do like that idea, Christine. It's a crazy world that we're living in, and we've got a new council, so fresh start. Can we at least take action on that tonight? Just go ahead and cancel all the ad hocs, and then on the next meeting, Mr. Mayor can go ahead and assign to the core ad hocs. Is that something we can do?
Yeah, the other ones are not ad hocs, they're committees. They're
Committees, I'm sorry.
yeah, committees, yeah.
Okay, I'm in agreement with that. Thank you. I'm a little bit saddened though, because I was appointed chair of intergovernmental and I was leading my very first meeting and kapoots.
That is still one of the core committees.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
I'm just making fun of the situation. My apologies.
Yeah, that's true. Haven't been meeting, true. So, okay. Did somebody else have a comment? I thought I saw somebody, their hand raised. Does that work for everyone then? For the next meeting, we can go through the committees, get the committee assignments? Or did you want to wait till February?
No, we can do it next meeting. It's good with me.
All right.
I agree, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
I agree.
All right.
So my direction is I will be killing all the ad hocs and we'll come back for core committees in January? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we'll just go with the core committees and then we'll start fresh again later with ad hocs as council members want something, we can go from there.
Thank you.
Okay? Is that all right with everyone?
Yes.
Thank you. All right then, let's go to, there is no more business. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
There's a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Good night, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Good
Thank
night.
you.
Be
Merry
safe during the
Christmas.
holidays. Take care, everyone.
Good night.